Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Play Some Video Games, the podcast with more to offer and show you this year at E3 than Nintendo themselves. It is I, your host, Kevin. With us this week is Donnie, as always. And then, man, I feel like it's been so long that I've gotten the pleasure of speaking to Kyle. But Kyle's with us this week as well. So let's start off with catching you guys up with what we've been up to. And since it's been a while, Kyle, why don't you go first?
Well, this little thing happened, I suppose. I did get married in the interim since I've spoken to you all last.
Yay!
So that's pretty cool. That's pretty exciting. So that's, life now of being married. And, it's kind of weird when you own a house with a person and own dogs with a person, and then you get married and you wake up the next day and pretty much everything's the same. And that's not bad because I really enjoy my life, and she's fantastic. My partner's fantastic. It just is very interesting because I actually went to work got married on Saturday, went back to work on Monday, and people at work were like, "Does everything seem different?" And I'm like, "No, not at all. Things seem as great, great like they were before." So we did get married, so that's pretty exciting. Also trying to sell our house. We've had some movement on it, and man, selling a house is stupid. Gosh, is this a pain in the butt? So we'll see what happens. We're not we don't have to move. We're not in a situation where we really, really need to sell this and move out. We just would like to get a place a little bigger and a little more permanent since we know we're going to be staying in the area. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, if you own a house, don't ever sell it because, man, selling a house is dumb. Outside of that, I did get a chance to play some video games. Uncharted 4 came out the week that I got married, and I actually finished it the Sunday after I got married, which I don't know what that says about me.
Priorities, that's what that says.
I know. It's pretty great. I actually played a little bit Saturday night, which was my wedding night, so, we were tired. She went to bed early, so I was like, all right, well.
We were tired, Kevin.
Hey, it was a long day. But, yeah.
Family show.
So that's how families are created, isn't it? Anyway,
so
got some Uncharted 4 and finished it up Sunday. When I was finishing the game, all I could think about the fact was that Neil Druckmann said that the ending was going to be really controversial, and I saw nothing controversial about it. I thought it was fantastic. So I really enjoyed the game. I know there were some people who felt that maybe the third act got a little long, and I can understand that, but for me, I thought it was fantastic. I'm not sure of my quote-unquote Uncharted ratings. I just really enjoy those characters. I love spending time with them. I think Naughty Dog just does something really special when it comes to storytelling. And when I looked at that game as I was playing it, I was like, man, why can't every game look like this? I want every game to look that good. And, I usually am a gameplay is king person, and gameplay in Uncharted isn't always what I want it to be, but man, for that series and just in general for Naughty Dog, I feel like I sometimes give them a pass because the characters are so engrossing and the environments are so fantastic and the storytelling is done so well. So if you own a PS4, I think it goes without saying that it's a must-play. Definitely, I think the first quarter or the first third of this year, I think, has actually been really great for PlayStation. They've been really lagging as far as games go, and I think even just from January to now, I've been playing really great games all year that many of them are exclusive. So I think they're finally starting to catch up on some of those things where I think Xbox was beating them on many of that stuff. But I think PlayStation owners are finally starting to get that value they were looking for. I've been happy with it for a while, but I know others haven't. So I think they're starting to get to that value. Another game I played, speaking of another exclusive, I played some Valkyria Chronicles Remastered.
Ooh.
I never played Valkyria Chronicles back on PS3 because I was a 360 owner, and I haven't played an RPG or gotten really into an RPG in a while, and I really wanted to jump into one, and I've heard really positive things about it. And let me just tell you, this game is fantastic. I am having a phenomenal time with it. It's a really, really nice tactical role-playing game. I've never been very good at tactical role-playing games, and the same holds true here. I'm not great at it. The challenge is enough where I get through, but I'm always like, oh, we got done. Didn't get done very well, but we got done. The story's fantastic. The characters are great. Some of the menus are a little clunky, how the save mechanic works. Like, you have to go in and manually save all the time. Some of that stuff is a little weird and shows that maybe it's a little old in certain areas. But overall, I'm really enjoying the game. I'm definitely not as far into it as I'd like to be at this point. But I look forward to putting many, many more hours into Valkyria Chronicles Remastered. So that's pretty fantastic. On my Vita, I've been playing a couple games as well. Flame Over was a PS Plus free game a month or two ago, And I had considered purchasing it when it came out. I never did, but it is kind of a twin-stick shooter in a sense, but you're playing a firefighter, putting out fires in buildings and rescuing people. It's pretty fun, but man, is that game difficult. It is super hard. I'm really not very good at it. I'm having a good time with it. I'll be honest, I'm glad I didn't pay for it, but I am having a little bit of fun with it. So Flame Over, if you had it on PS Plus, I think it was cross-buy with PS4. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's true. It's a good, fun little game, so if you have it from PS Plus, check it out. And then finally, Downwell came out this week on Vita and PS4. Of course, Vita is the right place to play it, and I think it's pretty cool because you can turn your Vita sideways to play it, so you're playing the long way. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, hang on a second. Why is it always cool when people can turn their Vitas sideways, but it's never cool when games make you turn your Wii U gamepad sideways?
I never said that wasn't cool.
Like, I get a lot of that. I see a lot of that. It's like, everybody's like, wow, you got to turn this sideways. This is stupid.
No.
People are like, oh, I got to turn my Vita sideways.
No, Donnie, they're saying the Wii U is stupid.
Okay.
That's what they're calling
I got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I will say it is kind of awkward the first time you do it of trying to figure out, like, where do you want the D-pads, on the top or the bottom. I'm playing with the D-pads on the bottom, and I feel I do much better there. But it's kind of fun. I played it not sideways for a while, and it is very small. It's very hard to see on the Vita. But it's just a fun little game. It's $5. It's, people give me crap a lot because I talk about how I don't really like playing mobile games, but then when mobile games come to Vita, I'm like, these are great. So I get it. Yeah, it was a mobile game, but I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a fun little cool roguelike. You're just a dude who's jumping down a well and you have gun boots. I mean, how cool is that? You're getting treasure killing monsters. It's a fun time. So if you got an extra $5 and you got a Vita, I definitely recommend picking up Downwell.
There you go. Donnie, what you been up to?
Before I get into what I've been up to, speaking of holding things sideways, the best way to play the golf club on PS4 is to turn your PlayStation 4 remote sideways. That's my trick, if anybody out there is still playing the golf club. This week's been a long week. I'll get the bad news out of the way first. My dog needs knee surgery.
No.
My poor pooch Archie tore his ACL as if he's some incredible athlete. We noticed that he was limping, and that's the weird thing, is he's been limping around for a couple weeks, and, I just thought he had a bum leg or something he could get over, and he just kept doing it, and I was like, you know what? It's almost time for his shots. Let's take him to the vet. And I took him to the vet, and they're like, so your dog has a torn ACL. I immediately felt like the worst dog owner ever. And then as they're telling me he needs knee surgery, he's literally, like, pulling on his leash and trying to jump up onto their countertop. And I'm like, really? He seems fine. He's he's jumping and running, and he's not crying, and there's no agony. He's just fine. He just has a limp. So we have to wait for the vet to get back to us on x-rays for that. Before I get into my gaming news, I also have life news. Kevin, how old are your children, if I might ask?
1, 9, and 12.
Do your kids watch TV with you?
Yeah.
So my kids really don't. Both my kids, I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my 9-year-old is all caught up in her little world of shows on Disney and the Family Channel and all of her little girl dramas. And my son is all about Pokemon and Yokai Watch, and they don't really watch TV with me. And that is until we switched to Hulu, and I started to rewatch episodes of Survivor Man. And man, that show has captivated both my children like nothing ever. Like the only show we've ever watched was wrestling together. And now, every day that I come home, they want to watch Survivor Man with Dad and Mom. So, trying to capitalize on this newfound interest, I asked them if they wanted to go camping. We've never been camping as a family, and they said yes. Uh-oh. So, I cashed in my Fire Emblem Fates Special Edition.
What?
In lieu of brand new camping gear for the whole family.
Did you even play it?
I did play it. See that? And okay, so I did play it. I played the first one, and I got through the first 16 chapters in Birthright.
Okay.
And it's really good. It's really good. But there's 3 games there, and I'm kind of torn, and I'm playing other games, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, man, if you cash this in, you could buy all this camping gear for the family, like really good gear, and, you could not have to, buy the camping gear, and then by the time you get back to Fire Emblem Fates, you could buy the digital versions or something like that. It's just, I knew it was going to be a while before I got to the other ones. Sure. And it was just an easy way out. So I sold it for the right price of $270.
Wow.
That game, I don't know what it is.
Crap.
That game, it was so hard to get a hold of, and it's still selling like fire. Like, there are people out there dying to get that game. So I'm glad I was able to get it to somebody. It was an auction. I didn't know Scott. I mean, that's just what it went for. I started the bidding at $150. And so we have brand new tents and air mattresses and hiking backpack and everything.
And they're going to hate it.
You think so?
Yeah.
I hope.
I can't wait for the stories, the camping stories, to be honest.
Whether or not they hate it, we're going. So tomorrow we're going to do a little test run. We're going to go camping out in the backyard. Tomorrow's the last day of school, so we're going to celebrate by doing s'mores and hot dogs and stuff out in the backyard with the dogs, and we're going to see how well they do, just kind of sleeping out in the yard. And then if all goes well, we're going to go out to the lake in a couple weeks.
There you go.
In terms of gaming, I'm also playing Uncharted 4. I had my first real experience with that game where you got that moment that kind of pulls at the feels. I was happy to get that under my belt and kind of made continuing to comb through it worth it. And boy, Kyle, you're right. That is a pretty game, isn't it? That game is real pretty. Uncharted has always had really great moments where you're on the edge of a cliff and you get this pretty vista, but that's not the pretty part of the game. The pretty part of the game for me is all the foliage that you hide in and the open fields. And I mean, it's that, that game does that. So I also played Killzone Shadowfall because I love it, and I got it for like $4 last week when it was on sale, and it's still one of my favorite, if not my favorite shooter that's come out on the system thus far. I continue to play Hyrule Legends and Linkle's Story, which you kind of have to replay all the other chapters to get through those sub-chapters, so that's fun. Because I don't have Fire Emblem Fates anymore, I went back to Pokemon. The original Pokemon Blue, which I kind of put down for maybe a month or two. So I picked that back up, and I had to look at a guide because I completely forgot where I was. So once I got my bearings, I started playing that again. And then I downloaded and played Super Punch-Out on SNES Virtual Console for 3DS.
Yeah, buddy.
And that game's hard.
Yeah.
I forgot how hard that game was. I remember I got in there and I was like, this is old, man, and I'll just punch him in the face. And he totally knocked me out in like 3 punches. I was like, ooh, I'm going to have to pay attention again. So I'm on, I think I got through the first 3 fighters. And that's it. That's been my week.
Alrighty then. My week has been pretty busy with work, although, we're recording it on Thursday this week instead of Fridays, and I'm not working tomorrow because we have the baby's birthday party coming up Saturday, so I got a bunch of stuff going on, transporting some tents and stuff like that. I'll tell you, I don't know how it's been in your neck of the woods, but it got hot up here out of nowhere. Yep. We went from like 50s and 60s to the last 2 days being in the 90s, so it sucks. I hate it. But despite that, I did get quite a bit of gaming in this past week. Finished up Ratchet & Clank thanks to Kyle, so I had a great time with that. It was a great little OG platformer, if you will, and man, it looks great, and the voice acting is phenomenal in it. So had a ton of fun with that, and the Sheepinator gun, that was my favorite, and the Pixelator. But as promised, I jumped back into Fallout 4, so wrapped up the main campaign and dove into the Fahaba DLC.
The Haba.
Last night, and played a bit more this morning. So I'll tell you, this DLC. So I didn't play the other 2 yet, because everyone's kind of like, oh, they're okay, but this was the one everyone was waiting for, so I jumped into this one first. Holy crap, it is good. They gave you something to fear in Fallout. Now, normally the whole appeal of Fallout, you're against humanity. There's raiders and stuff like that, but they're just humans with guns and their own agendas and stuff like that. There are some messed up radioactive creatures in Far Harbor that are insane. There's like mutated lobster creatures and giant like frog-like things. It's just messed up. And the whole area is covered in this fog. That's basically radioactive, and they just refer to it as the fog. And you don't go out in the fog because you'll go crazy, number one, and number two, all these messed up creatures are out there. So what do? You go right out into that fog. So you never really know when something's coming up. Your line of vision is very limited, so you might end up walking right into something before you realize what it is, and you kind of have like an oh crap moment and try and back up. But so far, really, really digging it, and it makes it feel more like the storylines of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, where they give you more story versus go here, kill this, and get that. There's more story behind this one than in the Fallout 4 game overall. So I'm enjoying it a lot. Can't wait to dig back into that. But I'm sure I'll be dealing with that for quite a few weeks, to be honest. But other than that, I started playing Shantae again on 3DS. Still having fun with that. Still a little weird, and there's a lot of sexual innuendos that are kind of uncomfortable, but
I love it.
yeah, it's very weird. There was something else that as a new character I came across, and it was just very odd. I forget what it was, but he was like a Cyclops, but he was like very metrosexual, and he's like, I made a wish, and I got really beefy and strong and handsome, and I have this sword, but I only get my powers when my sword is held erect. That's the only time I'm beautiful, with my erect sword, and they said like erect sword like 5 times in like a 30-second conversation, and I'm like, this is very creepy, so I don't know. I'm still enjoying the game, but it's very weird. But yeah, that's been it for me. So I think with that being said, boys, we're ready to dive into some messages.
Message for you, son.
And our first message this week comes from Dan. Dan asks, E3 typically has stories where they bring back some retro titles and kind of update them for the new age. What would you like to see brought back at this year's E3 as a surprise? So let's go with Donnie first.
Does it have to be like retro, like old school?
I don't think it has to be like old school, but probably something we just haven't seen in a few years that all of a sudden makes a resurgence.
NCAA football. I don't care if it's just for backwards compatibility. Just give me NCAA football. The other thing that I would suggest is, let's see here, retro. WWE Arcade.
Ooh.
I used to love that game. I think it was called WWF WrestleMania on the Saturn, and then WWF Arcade in arcades, and maybe on SNES. But it was a side-scrolling brawler that you could drop down from the apron, and you could get inside, and everybody, had their little strong attack and their weak attack, and then their ridiculous attack. They kind of did that with the WWF All-Stars game that came out a while ago.
Yeah.
It's still really good, but that wasn't like the arcade game. I'm thinking of like an arcade brawler. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I remember. That was one that had like Razor Ramon and Diesel and
Yes, and the clown
Doink and Undertaker,
yes.
Shawn Michaels. Yep.
Yes, and they had like special attacks where the Undertaker could hit you with skulls and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that was very cool. All right then, Kyle, how about you?
So, as a PlayStation person, I think the right answer I'm supposed to give is Crash Bandicoot, right? Like that's the trend right now. But honestly, the first 2 games that came to mind when you asked this question, and I'm almost kind of embarrassed to admit it because neither one of these games are really good, but they're the first 2 that came to mind, so I'm going to go with them. Number 1, Tenchu Stealth Assassins.
No.
Okay.
I don't even know what that is, and I'm voting against it.
I don't know why. That was like the first game that came to mind. That and Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis would be cool.
So those are the 2 games, I guess.
Wait a minute. I thought they were making a Dino Crisis game. They showed it last year, E3. Little girl hunts dinosaurs.
What? Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn, really?
There you go. Catch it up.
Wow, little girl hunts dinosaurs. That's what we're going with for that? But yeah, so I don't know why. Those were the 2 games that immediately came to mind when that question was asked, so I guess that's what I'm going to have to go with.
All right. So I had a few on my list. I'd love to see him bring a Katamari game back. I talked about that in my Greatest Games You've Never Played episode way back in the early days. And actually, as well, I'd like a real Chibi Robo game. The last couple they've done have been like side-scrollers. It has no story to it or anything like that, so I'd like to see that. Shoot, there was another one in my head, and it just ran away.
Is it Bust a Move? Because I'm sitting there thinking that I'd like to see another Bust a Move.
No, because my problem with Bust a Move is, so Bubble Bobble was the game that kind of evolved into Bust a Move, and Bubble Bobble is a way better game, so I'd rather see that brought back. But
Super Monkey Ball.
Dude, Monkey Ball would be an awesome one, too. I'd love to see that back.
Yeah.
And also, the other one that popped in my head that will never come back, but I had a ton of fun with that on the PS3, was the Buzz Trivia game that you got the buzzers for.
Oh, yeah.
I had a blast with both those. They had the TV one and then, like, Buzz World or whatever. I loved those games, and I had so many parties where you were able to bring, somebody else had it too, and you could use all 8 buzzers and have like an 8-game trivia thing. I'd love to see that brought back and kind of updated and kind of revamped, but I'm willing to bet money it won't happen, but.
Yeah, I had that on 360 actually. That game was a really good time.
Yeah.
The other one I think that would be fun is doing Parappa the Rapper in VR. So let's do that. That'd be a good time.
Ooh.
I'd like just Parappa the Rapper, the rhythm game. That'd be fun.
All right, we shall see. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a surprise. Second question comes in from James. James just kind of sent some quick fire, rapid fire questions. So We'll just kind of go through. So we'll go Donnie answers, then Kyle answers, then me. Okay? So Doritos versus Cheetos.
Doritos.
Coke versus Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Coke. Weirdos. McDonald's versus Burger King.
Burger King.
Wendy's? Otherwise
Wendy's.
Burger King, but yes.
I was following the rules. But yes,
I will go with both. Burger King for burgers, but McDonald's for fries.
No, that's not how this works. Both of you are ruining it. Follow the rules.
It depends on what he's talking about. Because if you want to talk McNuggets and fries, McDonald's owns. But if you want to talk about burgers, I prefer Burger King's burger. So
I like Burger King's fries.
Oh.
Agreed. Donnie, you're right.
Oh, heroes. All right, and our last question this week comes from our only female listener, Linda, as she's known as. And she only listens for Kyle, so she will hear her question this week. Why do you guys prefer, I guess if you do, video games over board games? So let's go to our resident board game expert first, Kyle.
Well, if it wasn't evident, Linda and I obviously play board games together. But I think, so I don't necessarily prefer video games to board games, but there are definitely situations where I'd rather play video games. And the main time for me is when I'm looking for an escape. I play board games to be social. I play video games when I just want to be me doing my thing. I still play multiplayer games sometimes, but for video games, for me, it's just really a time to sit down, relax, kind of, let go of the stress of the day and everything else. So that's really, for me, the time that I'd much rather play video games over board games. It's just when I'm looking for that escape.
All right. And Donnie?
I take offense to that. I like board games, or I like cards. I like card games. That's a better way of putting it. We play a lot of card games. We play Uno quite a bunch. We play Spades and Euchre when we have friends over. And then the kids and I have a very robust Pokemon card collection that we pull out from time to time. But I would say we do prefer video games. I just find them more interactive and more entertaining. To me, they're more or less a natural evolution. The board games that we do have, we've got the family mainstays. We've got Life and Monopoly. One of my favorite board games is Axis and Allies, and unfortunately nobody in the house wants to play that game with me. So, yeah, I'm kind of up the creek there. But with the video games, they're just so much more interactive, entertaining, and everybody has a controller. Kind of brings all, they're colorful, sounds, music, all of that stuff. So, there you go.
I'm kind of in the same boat with Kyle there. I actually do enjoy board games and card games quite a lot, but video games are kind of the escape. You just want to unplug, you want to go do your own thing, you want to have a great story, then I'll go to video games. Or, I don't play a lot of multiplayer games on my consoles. So my multiplayer experience is actually in person via board games or card games. So I do a lot of Pokemon. We have Machi Koro for the board games, and we have the Clues and everything else like that too, as well as some other party games. So I don't necessarily prefer one over the other. It's just kind of circumstances where if I'm playing alone, then most likely I'm playing a video. Well, actually, then I'll always be playing a video game. Sometimes I'll play video games with the family, but most of the time it's more board games, stuff like that, versus multiplayer video games. So. That's it for messages, fellas. So just a reminder to anybody, if you want to ask us a question, feel free to let us know on the forums. You can tweet at us at _PSVG, and you can email us at playsomevideogames@gmail.com. So it's time, everybody. As we continue this week, our road to E3 coverage, this week we will be tackling Sony at E3. So let's kind of break down E3 and bring up the topics we want to talk about. And so naturally, because we have our resident doctor of PlayStation, if you will, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and kick off the conversation for us here?
Wow, that's a lot of pressure, doctor of PlayStation. I wonder how many hours of video games I had to play to get that. But anyway, I thought...
I was going to go with Mayor.
I'll take Mayor.
Mayor of PlayStation Town?
Sure.
He said PlayStation Island.
Oh, that's right. Yes, PlayStation Island.
PlayStation Island.
It's PlayStation Island, the Xbox Empire, and the Nintendo Shack.
Is the Nintendo Shack on PlayStation Island?
I'm thinking the Nintendo needs to be more like a double wide.
Aww.
All right.
Hey, they did it, not us.
That's true. All right. So I thought an interesting way to start talking about Sony at E3 is that every year people get all excited, the press conferences get over, they dissect everything, and then a couple months later we tend to forget about what that conference was and everything that was talked about. So I thought it'd be interesting to start if we did a recap of the 2015 conference and kind of talked about 1 year later, how do we feel about that conference? Do we feel that it lived up to the hype that it had immediately afterwards, and kind of where are things sitting? So I'm going to go through, talk about most of the bigger announcements that happened at the 2015 press conference for Sony, and I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about like what the game was or what was announced, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what we know about it today, and then we'll kind of go from there and talk about our reflections on 1 year later. So to start with, Last Guardian still existed. So that was re-revealed at E3 2015. Recent rumors say this is still on track for 2016. In fact, an article was released, I think, today, where some folks over at IGN played the first 45 minutes of the game, and they said it was pretty spectacular. So that's good to hear. In addition, Horizon Zero Dawn was announced. Recent rumors are saying this is going to get delayed to 2017, so we'll see what happens there. The Hitman was revealed. So there was no mention of it being episodic at that time, so the game is kind of out right now, I guess. Street Fighter V was talked about. The game had been announced previously, but they just talked about some characters and all of that good stuff. Dreams was revealed from Media Molecule. Nobody really knows what that is still or when it's coming out. I kid. We kind of know a bit about it, but that thing was whatever that is was announced. Destiny: The Taken King got a release date. That was actually leaked just prior to E3, but it was on Sony's main stage. Firewatch was announced as a console debut on PS4. I've heard that perhaps it's now just a console exclusive for PS4. Obviously, it's on PC too, so I don't know exactly where that's going to shake out, but that was announced. Obviously, the Final Fantasy VII Remake was revealed, and that will maybe come out someday. In addition to that, World of Final Fantasy was announced for PS4 and Vita. Supposedly, those are both still on track for 2016, so we'll see what happens there. The Shenmue 3 Kickstarter was announced. That's going to come out sometime, maybe. There were some recent pictures on Twitter of Yu Suzuki, Anna Boys, and some other folks from PlayStation all hanging out, so I feel like we're probably going to get an update at E3. Devolver Digital actually announced 4 games there: Ronin, A-Tier, Mother Russia Bleeds, and Crossing Souls, and none of those games have come out yet. Assassin's Creed Syndicate DLC got some exclusive content, and that was announced on the stage. They talked about PlayStation Vue having expanded options. No one really cared. No Man's Sky, more gameplay again. Rigs for PSVR was revealed, so the new IP from Guerrilla Cambridge. That was the first time it saw the light of day. PlayStation became the official home of Call of Duty, taking the 30-day exclusivity away from Microsoft. Disney Infinity Star Wars had exclusive content and characters for PlayStation, and as recent news has showed, we all know how that worked out. Star Wars Battlefront Co-op got revealed for the first time, so the multiplayer had been seen, but the co-op missions that exist in the game were shown for the first time. And the show ended with the Uncharted 4 demo that happened. So that's a brief recap of kind of what the 2015 PlayStation conference looked like. So with that in mind, Jason, when you think about last year's conference, what do you think now?
Well, if Jason was here, he'd probably tell you something.
Oh, man, Kevin, what do you think? How about let's go with you instead?
All right, so my opinion of last year's?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember watching this live as it was going on, and I was blown away by announcement after announcement. When it was, Shenmue 3 was coming back, Final Fantasy 7, Horizon Zero Dawn was huge in my mind, and I honestly, I forgot about Dreams until you just said it again, and I remember being confused as to what it was, but Media Molecule is always known for doing really quirky things that 9 times out of 10 end up being enjoyable, so I'm on board for that. So I think last year it was huge. They really kind of set the bar, and I remember, Microsoft didn't come out with as much of a bang, and Nintendo obviously the same thing. It's like everybody out the gate right away was like, well, Sony just won E3, along with, I believe Bethesda had a really good reception amongst the media when they did their announcements. But I remember everyone kind of saying out of the consoles, Sony kind of just dominated it. So it was good to see a lot of those titles. Sure, a lot of those titles we still don't have today, so we'll get a lot more of it again, I think, in a couple weeks. But last year I was floored, so they set the bar really high to go into this year and try and match that, if not exceed it.
Donnie, what did you think now, looking back 1 year later?
Floored, huh? That's what you were floored with last year's. I honestly, I often feel like I do kind of sit on an island. I thought last year's show was poor. I did not really enjoy last year's show, more or less because I didn't think it was for me. The best announcements that I saw were the third-party announcements because they actually usually came with dates and we knew that they were coming. The Shenmue thing I just thought was weird and odd. that their announcement at E3 was that they were going to start a Kickstarter for a game that I didn't play and I know I have no ties to. I know everybody lost their minds, and maybe I just don't know what I'm missing, and that might be true, but for somebody that doesn't know what they're missing, I was like, this is weird. Their announcement is that they're going to start a Kickstarter. That was odd. The best thing that came out of last year was Horizon Zero Dawn. Man, I really hope we still get that game. Having played Xenoblade X already, and having seen Scalebound, I'm worried if that game gets delayed, as the rumor is, I'm worried that game, is going to feel old. Hopefully they've got something, that hooks it in, story-wise. And just trying to think over everything else. Yeah, I mean, the third-party stuff was great. VR is VR. It looks awesome. I haven't tried it. I haven't done it, so I'm not really interested. And that's it. There's nothing there that's really holding me to last year's show. I wasn't a big fan.
See, and this is why, Kevin, you should never let me host, because now in my notes is when you're supposed to go. I don't know why I thought Jason was going to be here this week. I was just so set on him being here. I think VR had a surprisingly small part about it. Like, you noticed, I didn't really even talk that much about VR other than rigs. I think a lot of people were surprised by that. I think Sony, quote-unquote, won last year based purely on nostalgia. And I don't think they've delivered that yet. They won based on games that are probably not even coming out this year and maybe not even next year yet. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what they do this year to maybe potentially make up for that. Of the games I listed, there were 21 games in that list. Only 9 of them have come out. So so that to me is really interesting. I think that, I think Xbox came out and they had the backward compatibility last year, and I think they talked a lot about games that, and maybe I don't know this for certain, but it seemed like they talked a lot about a lot of games that have happened. Sony, I think, was trying to set, talking about big things, but they're not going to happen for a while, even still. So I'll be really interested to see what they do this year.
I mean, that's my thing with the Final Fantasy VII thing. I mean, I get that it's a big announcement. A lot of people love that game, but the way that it was announced, I'm pretty sure it wasn't even in development yet. The way that it, to me, the thing that I took away from that last year's conference was, we don't have a lot ready to show you now, so we're going to make these promises that you all want. To me, it's as if like Nintendo went up there and said, we've got Metroid and Animal Crossing and F-Zero, and they're coming later. Everybody would lose their minds, but if a year went by, people would get really pissed.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. So with that, then we have a few main topics that we're going to kind of rotate through and chat with a little bit. So we're going to start with what everybody thinks, or many people assume is going to happen, is PlayStation 4.5, PlayStation Neo, some sort of announcement related to that. So Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I've said this numerous times on the podcast. I hate it. While I'm all for putting more power into a system and getting better performance out of it, and I recently read an article today that kind of some mumblings were that the reason this is happening now is because of poor VR performance on regular PlayStation 4s, and since they're putting a lot of their eggs in the VR basket, that could be problematic for them. But just speculation there at that point. But for me, if you only get 3 years out of a console, that kind of gives me some cause. And I know they're saying it's not a replacement. There won't be any games designed exclusive for it, blah, blah, blah. However, I think it's going to end up heading that way. And if you're a multiplayer gamer at all, like I'm not, so it doesn't affect me too much. But if you're a multiplayer gamer and you're up against somebody who has the new 4.5 or Neo, whatever it's going to be, there can't not be some sort of effect or benefit to having the better console. I think it's inevitable. Obviously, we know Microsoft's got something similar up their sleeves. So I feel like as a gamer, it makes you almost want to drive towards the PC market where, well, if I'm going to be upgrading all the time, at least I won't have to upgrade every 3 years on a PC. I can get a little bit more juice out of it without spending $400, $500, $600 on a new console. But that's just me, so I'll pass it over.
Donnie, what do you think?
I'm on the same boat with the exception that I don't mind buying a better box every 2 years. I really don't. I think upgradable hardware could be a good thing. My biggest reason against it is I don't feel like they've given me a reason to upgrade. That's what I'm most upset with right now is I don't play my PlayStation 4 enough as it is. There isn't enough on the horizon. I haven't pre-ordered a game for the rest of this year for PlayStation yet. They haven't, there's no big, I'm not looking forward to any gigantic lineup. So to me, I don't feel like I need to upgrade. I'm not buying a PlayStation VR. I have no plans on doing it unless they show me something that makes me have to do it, to which we haven't seen. So until they give me a reason to upgrade, I'm just going to sit here and play the games that I get for PlayStation Plus and, the exclusive every now and again.
Well, Donnie, the reason you haven't pre-ordered any PlayStation 4 games is because pre-ordering is silly and you should never do it. But with that being said, I think that there was an article that was released a day or two ago that said that the conjecture was the reason that Sony was doing this was purely to try to, I don't know, for lack of a better term, get the goat of Xbox, to really try to push Xbox to hopefully have their plans revealed. And I think that's kind of silly, like, oh, we're going to leak some stuff so hopefully other stuff gets leaked or we can find out more information. I do think, the recent rumors of Xbox's new things, which I think you have to look at them both, and even like looking over at NX, they're talking about how the rumors are that the new Xbox is going to be 4 times as powerful as the current one. That's way more powerful than this new Neo is going to be. So I agree that's not till next year, and it's going to work with Oculus, which I think makes perfect sense. I think most people saw some sort of Xbox Oculus package coming in the future since Oculus ships with an Xbox One controller. But I do think that their goal with this is to try to bring in a console at the $400 price point that's going to be a little bit better than the current one, and then try to drive down the price of the PS4 even further so that they have the entry level and, for a while at least, the high level of the market through the holiday season to really, because they also came out recently saying they're looking at selling another 20 million PS4s by May. So that's ridiculous. That's a ton of units for them to sell.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I feel like that's maybe where they're going with this, is they're going to try to encapsulate both ends of the market, hope some people will buy a second one, and then obviously I'm sure they're going to have some PSVR Neo packages as we get into the holiday season. So I'm not necessarily for it or against it. I am just more interested to see what their message about it is going to be and who this is going to appeal to. And like myself, I have a PSVR on pre-order. I don't know if I can afford both of those this fall, a Neo and that. And if I'm forced to pick one, like, am I going to pick a PSVR if it's not going to run as well on my current PS4? Or am I going to get a Neo and then pick up a PSVR in a year? I don't know. I don't know what my answer is right now. So with that, nice transition. PSVR. Donnie, what do you think we're going to see from PSVR this year?
I don't know. I mean, I there's a bunch of games, Dreams and Rigs and games that we've seen. I'm sure they've got something that we haven't seen. I expect No Man's Sky to have VR support as much as they said that they have it. And, I believe it was delayed again this week.
That's what they're saying.
That's
correct?
a rumor.
Right. There you go. So I think we're going to see No Man's Sky VR support. I mean, I'm to be honest with you, I don't follow the VR side news a whole lot. I do expect, I want to say significant. I don't know what that means. Sony's show is usually really long. So if they have a 2-hour show, I'd expect to see 15, 20 minutes of VR.
Gotcha. Kevin, your thoughts, sir?
I think we're going to see, I want to say probably more than 15 or 20 minutes, which in my mind is a little bit foolish, but I think that's kind of all they have to show and promise for this year. So I think they kind of want to drive that. But I said this actually, I think I said this on Fluxtapose, was VR in a conference is very weird because you're not going to be able to portray it to the audience. They're not going to be able to experience it and really tell the difference. You can show a trailer, but it's going to look like a trailer for a regular game. You're not going to be able to portray that VR experience without actually trying it. So although they probably shouldn't spend too much time on it, I think it's too big of a focus for them to not show it enough of it. Personally, for me, VR is not for me. I'm not that type of gamer, so it doesn't really appeal to me, but I am interested to see how it works, possibly try one out. I know Best Buy is going to have them, demo stations and stuff, so I am going to try and at least experience it and see what it's like. But ultimately, I don't think it's for me, but I think it's going to be a big chunk of what Sony talks about in a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Sony's conferences usually are, 90 minutes to 2 hours, somewhere in that ballpark. And I expect, honestly, a solid 30 minutes to be about VR. And,
yeah.
And the reason, so. Yeah, and I mean, I know E3 has, like, their fan conference this year that fans can go see that's, like, adjacent to E3. But I keep thinking about the fact that E3 really technically is still supposed to be a show where you're showing people, hey, here's what we have to buy. You want to carry our stuff in stores. So in order to get store shelves for PSVR, they got to show people, they got to show Best Buy and GameStop and Target and Walmart, hey, here's what we have to offer with this. This is why you want to give us shelf space. So I think it's going to be a big part of their conference. I honestly think it's going to be 30 minutes. Now, maybe they know way more than I do, and they know that it doesn't show well, so it's not going to be that, and they're going to try to do all of that convincing behind closed doors. That could definitely happen, but I do think it's going to be a big part of their conference. I really hope that they have some sort of new controller for PSVR, more similar to the Oculus Touch or the Vive controllers. From all the I've been reading about VR, those controllers, well, the Vive ones right now, since the Touch isn't out yet, really do a ton to make VR, quote-unquote, worth it, to really help with the immersion that is the buzzword when it comes to VR. And while waving a couple wands might be cool, I think that's obviously definitely a step behind what a lot of the other controllers are, so I hope we see something there. I hope we see some Battlefront VR gameplay. They made a big deal about that when they at GDC when they announced when PSVR was going to be coming out, that they're going to have an exclusive Battlefront game or experience, if you would. So I hope we see some of that, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of the other games they've always already talked about, whether it be Riggs or Robinson's Journey or Gollum or any of those other games. I'm sure we'll see probably more gameplay of those, probably some gameplay of Gran Turismo Sport running in VR, maybe some other things, and I'd expect we'll probably get a solid release date, I would think.
I want to see that Paranormal Activity demo that's been floating around. I'd like to see more about that. I think VR, at least for me, the whole horror game aspect of VR, if they can do something with Resident Evil, the Friday the 13th game that's coming, but I've seen videos of people playing the Paranormal game, and it scares the crap out of them, and I'd like to see what that game's all about.
I agree. I think that'd be sweet. I mean, anytime you have people throwing controllers and ripping headsets off, clearly you're doing something to scare the crud out of people. So I think, moving along the gaming front, The Last Guardian, I think, is a game that we all expect, or many people expect to be there. I'm excited about The Last Guardian. I was a little skeptical since we hadn't heard anything in the last year about it, really. I thought maybe that was a good move on their part, because Sony sometimes has the problem of hyping a game too much, a la No Man's Sky, a la Uncharted 4 towards the end. Like, we just sometimes start to see way too much of a game before it comes out. So in The Last Guardian, we really haven't seen anything since last E3. I was getting a little worried that maybe it wasn't going to come out this year. But I do feel now, especially with the new reports that have just come out, I do feel like that game is going to be on stage. I think we're going to get a solid release date. And I do think it's going to definitely be before the end of the year. And I'm excited to see that. Kevin, what are you thinking about The Last Guardian?
I think you're right. I think we're definitely going to see that release this year. Sony needs it, especially with the pushing of a lot of titles into 2017 and beyond. They need a big title. Me personally, I was interested, back in the day when it was, supposedly in development, and then they showed it last year, and at first I was like, oh, okay, let's see what they do with it. And then they showed the trailer or the demo, whatever it was, and that didn't really do anything for me at all. I don't know if it's the way it was portrayed on television, but a lot of reports were like, oh, it looked beautiful and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I remember watching the video at home and thinking the textures on the bird, dog, creature thingy looked horrible. So I don't know if that was a streaming thing or not, but to me it made me actually less excited for it when they showed it. I was a little excited at first. You hear the name, I was like, oh, cool, let's see what it is. And I was like, oh, all right, that's what this is. I'm hoping they show something a little more concrete this year, and it portrays better on television, I guess. So I'm reserving judgment. I want to be optimistic about it because I think it has great potential, but last year's showing did not help it in my mind at all.
Donnie.
Well, I hope The Last Guardian is out that day. I really do. I know that sounds ridiculous. I hope it's a PT moment. I hope where they come out and they show it to you, they get you all, I wouldn't say hyped, because I think that game's hype train has left the station. However, I do hope that it's a surprise. I hope they turn it into a surprise. Maybe not out that day, maybe out that week, maybe out this, shortly thereafter, but I would really love it if they said, hey, it hits retail June 25th. Those of you who want to buy digital, you can buy it right now. I think that'd be a really good way to get that game out, because we've seen that game forever. I wasn't a huge fan of Eco, so I've always been reserved kind of in this game. I mean, it looks like a game. I can't say I'm excited to play it. I really don't know what it's about still, in terms of gameplay. So They're going to still need to hook me to make me purchase it. However, if they threw it out that day, considering, as I mentioned before, there's nothing really on the horizon in the PlayStation market that I'm looking to play or get a hold of, that would be something that would make me at least consider it, which I think would be a really good announcement. I mean, the game's been delayed for so long. The idea of them coming out on, in early June, I don't know, when is the actual date of their presentation, Kyle?
The 13th, I believe, whatever that Monday is.
The idea of them coming on the 13th and going, The Last Guardian, coming to PlayStation in October 28th, it just still seems like you're just waiting. And it's like, just release the game. Just tell me it's out, and I may or may not play it, but,
Yeah, I think there's going to be a game that's probably released that way. I don't know if it'll be Last Guardian. I think with how much money they've put into it, I feel like they probably want to put a big marketing push behind it since they've been paying to have this game made for 10 years or whatever it is at this point.
Do you think it's going to help? That's the thing, is I don't think it's going to help.
I honestly don't know if it is either, but if you look at the games that Sony has picked to push or opted not to push, sometimes I feel like they've just picked the wrong horses. I mean, Until Dawn got almost no fanfare. It got very little marketing behind it. Ratchet and Clank really did it other than the movie. Like, the movie got more push, it feels like, than the game ever did. I feel like sometimes they pick and choose, and sometimes they look at how much push The Order got compared to some of those other games that are far better games. So we'll see. I think that they're going to choose to push it a lot, but whether or not it'll matter, I really don't think it will. So another game that probably doesn't need much hype anymore, Final Fantasy VII. So this got announced last year. At PSX, they actually showed some gameplay. The big joke about it last year was that when they announced the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the director of the game didn't even know he was the one directing it. He found out at the presentation. So what do we think? Do we think anything's going to happen with Final Fantasy VII this year? Donnie, what are your thoughts?
It's not coming out this year. They're going to show it again. They're going to tell you that it's, there's a demo or a prologue or some way that you can hold a thumbstick and make a character move in that world for 5 minutes, and I don't care. I didn't play that game. I wasn't strongly attached to it. I did play it, but I wasn't attached to it when I did play it, so I never got caught up in that wave. And it being remade, I mean, I have no ties to that at all. So
yeah, I mean, if that game isn't coming out in the next 12 months, even though it's going to be episodic, but if we're not getting episode 1 in the next 12 months, I don't want to see this game at all. I want to see nothing from this game. I don't want them to talk about it at all. I think they're probably going to, but I don't want them to. If we're not seeing it before next E3, I think they should just leave it on the shelf, wait till next E3, and push it for next fall or whatever it's going to be. But I really hope, which maybe some people aren't pleased with, but I really hope we don't see this game at all if it's not coming in the next 12 months. Kevin, your thoughts?
Oh, you'll see it. They're definitely going to show it. They kind of have to, unfortunately, and this is where they kind of shot themselves in the foot last year, whereas they showed so many awesome things that if they don't keep bringing it up every once in a while, people are going to stop caring. Now, I know it's Final Fantasy VII, so that holds a huge place in a lot of gamers' hearts, so that might hold on to them, but somebody like myself, who I played it, I enjoyed it, but to me, that was back then. I don't need to play it again. I was excited for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then they were like, hey, it's episodic, and then I'm like, oh, I'm all set. I'd rather just play through it, and I don't understand how you can even take a game that's open world and like that and make it episodic. So I don't know what they're doing with it, but I feel like we're definitely going to see more, and I think almost I want to almost say it's not really going to be Final Fantasy VII. They're going to do something different with the story in order to make it episodic, because there's no way you can take the game as it was, upscale it, and revamp it and make it episodic. It doesn't fit in that way. So I think we might get a twist on it, but I think for sure we're going to see more. So if we're guessing, I will say we will get episode 1 in like Q1 of next year.
I think the episode thing is what I'm really kind of bent on. I don't think it's episodic in the way that we think it is. I don't think they're going to release 5 $20 downloads or packs, or I think they're going to release the game in like 2 or 3 parts at $60 a piece.
That would be insane.
I think it's going to sell. I really do. I think they're going to go, here's Final Fantasy VII, the first half, and it's $60. And in 2 or 3 years, we'll get you the next one.
It seems like that might be the direction they're going. There's been some it's been alluded to that they're kind of looking at like Final Fantasy 13 as the structure, maybe how the game will come out and the price structure. So I think we definitely could get 3 $60 games that come out every other year or something like that. Like, I could see it. And the thing is, I think even people will complain, I think people are going to buy it.
Yep.
I don't know. If it's like that, they're not buying all three. The first one will sell well, and then I think they'll revisit for the next two. I just don't see it happening, especially considering how long it takes to make these games. There's no way they'll be able to release it in anything less than 2 or 3 years in between.
Right, which is why then you can charge $60 a pop every 2 years.
You can do it, but if it's not a full... Like, Final Fantasy games are hundreds of hours. If it's not that, like, then it's not gonna work. And where do you cut that story into multiple segments, too? That's the other thing.
Well, see, as someone who has Final Fantasy VII on my pile of shame as I've never finished it, I have no idea. I don't know where that event... You know, and I'll be honest, I don't know how interested I am in this game. I think that the hype over this game was huge when it was announced, and I think a lot of people are less high on it than they were before. Yeah. I think they just need to put some time into it, and I think PSX would be a great place to show more of it. Especially if nothing's happening soon, I just really hope we don't see this on the main stage this year.
Agreed. I'm more...
Couldn't they have just... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm more excited for the new Final Fantasy than I am the 7, so that's just me.
Why couldn't they have just taken the original and just given it very new, pretty graphics and left everything alone? And just released that.
That's what they should have done, to be honest. They've done some upscaled versions, but if they just like remastered it, I would be much happier, much more excited to play it then.
Well,
in one game, not 3.
Right. As we all know, sometimes Square Enix misses the mark when it comes to Final Fantasy. So, another game that probably isn't going to be out for some time, Shenmue 3. So, with all the pictures and things floating around social media recently, and the fact that, you know, there have been stills and some artwork shown at different conferences and things like that for Shenmue, a lot of people are thinking we might get either a trailer or a gameplay trailer or something to kind of show, like, hey, 1 year ago we did this Kickstarter. Here's where we're at. I'm not a huge Shenmue fan. I agree with, I think it was Donnie who said it seemed weird that that people are freaking out about this. I know people who played it. I never really played it. I played a few hours of them, but I'm not a huge fan of them. I'm glad people are really stoked about it. It wouldn't surprise me to see maybe a Shenmue 1 and 2 remaster if they could work that out with Sega, announced possibly. But I think this game honestly is a 2017 or a 2018 even release, but it would not surprise me if we get a gameplay trailer or a cinematic trailer of some sort. Donnie, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they have gameplay. What I think you'll have is some sort of in-engine cinematic trailer showing what they think they're going to have in a game. But it's so early for that. And what I said earlier, I was been thinking about it since I said it. It does feel a little harsh. You know, they came out and they said that we're going to revisit a game, and everybody got excited because there's a lot of people tied to it. You know what? I got excited when Nintendo showed the first cover art for the new Zelda game, and that was like 4 years ago, and I'm still excited. So I get that. It's just that game doesn't have that tie for me. I just did think it was weird that they did it through the Kickstarter route. I would much rather than, you know, actually fund the game and have faith in it and create a game that they think they can market as opposed to, hey, we think you want this, give us money and we'll make it. That just seemed odd.
Kevin, are you sitting on your forklift anxiously awaiting Shenmue 3?
I kind of am. I think they're farther along than you guys think they might be, only because the creator had already had the story and kind of everything set up prior to even starting the Kickstarter. And, I mean, yeah, it was weird announcing a Kickstarter, but they did it purely to get the funding that they needed when Sony was fronting the rest of the money anyway. So I think it might be farther along than they let us in on it. So I'm predicting a late 2017, early 2018 release, but I'm almost willing to put money down saying you will 100% see a remastered edition of 1 and 2 for maybe like $40 coming out either late this year or early next year to coincide to catch people up with the story who didn't play through, because it's been so long. You have to. You can't expect the game to do well without bringing people back into the story, because it is episodic. See? Where if you didn't play 1 and 2, you're going to be lost when it comes to 3. So I would anticipate seeing that. At first, I was going to say probably as a digital thing, but I think they'll do a physical release just to pull people in and make sure they get as much exposure as possible.
So transitioning from third-party partnerships to first-party and little girls shooting dinosaurs, as we talked about earlier, Horizon Zero Dawn. Donnie, do you think, A, what are we going to see from Horizon at E3? B, is it coming out this year?
I'm going to start with B. It is coming out this year, and I feel like this is a marketing ploy. I feel like the leaks that it could possibly be delayed is just to get everybody all warm and fuzzy and good reactions when they come out and say, nope, it's not delayed, it's coming out, it's our big fall title, and I think it hits PlayStation 4 this November. This is the game I want. This is the game I want. I love the art, I love the style, I love the developer. I just need them to give me a reason to play the game other than you get to go and hunt robotic dinosaurs. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. I love it, but I have that game in Xenoblade, and there are other games that also offer a similar experience. So I need them to give me a little bit more than that, which I think they will. I think this is going to get the Uncharted 4 treatment, where they're going to have a significant demo, 5 to 10 minutes. They come out and they talk about it. They explore the systems of the game. They really get you hooked, and then they blow it out, and then this is the big fall game, and I'm super excited, and I pre-order it the day of, and we're ready to go.
I just want to note you said unfarted and blow it out in the same sentence.
Okay. I know. Because I was trying to get to 4 before I finished the word Uncharted.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I'm excited for this one. I feel like they kind of have to have it released this year, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen.
Said every PlayStation 4 game shown since the PlayStation 4. I feel like it has to come out this year, and every one of them's been delayed.
I mean, so you figure this was done by the same people who did Killzone, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what have they been working on since Shadowfall? Exactly. So I think that in the back of my head makes me think that they might have been a lot farther than what they showed at E3 last year. So that is potential of coming out this year. They need that blockbuster. As much as Last Guardian, if it were to come out this year, I think it would do well. I think this game would squash it big time. Like, this is more of the game that the core gamer would want. You know, your dude bro gamers would love this kind of thing too. But it appeals to kind of everybody that's a gamer. I don't need much more than killing robotic dinosaurs. That sold me on the demo. So it looked great last year. As long as they keep it up and at least, you know, has the same look, same feel. I would love to have a story and obviously understand what's going on in this world, which I'm sure they'll give us. They did a great job with that in the Killzone games. You know, for a first-person shooter, had a great storyline you don't get all the time. So I think they did well with that, and I wouldn't expect anything less here. But I'm not sure we're gonna get a release this year. Maybe early 2017, maybe around the same time Uncharted 4 came out, but next year.
So I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I think Guerrilla split into 2 teams prior to the most recent Killzone being released. So I think this has actually been worked on since even before that game came out.
Ooh.
So I think it's had a lot of time. It's been incubating for a while. It's been being worked on for a while. I think this is going to be the game that starts the show. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is going to be the first thing you see when their press conference starts. And I hope this game comes out this fall only because a lot of people are anticipating that it does. And if it doesn't, granted, Sony has never officially said this is our big fall game. They did say it's a 2016 release, but they've never said this is one of our fall pillar games. But if this game pushes to 2017, that's 3 years in a row they've missed a fall game. And we'll probably talk about this more when it comes to No Man's Sky, but I'm a huge Sony fan, but they got to stop telling us release dates because they can't hit them to save their life.
Yep.
They're missing everything right now. So if they come out and that screen comes up and it says, you know, October, November, whatever it is, 2016, and they miss again, how much slack can you cut them, really? I mean, I think if this is going to push, they need to tell us now. They can't say a 2016 release and then in September be like, oh, our beta is coming out in February or March or May. They just got to stop doing this. And I get.
They're not going to announce a delay on stage at E3. There's no way.
No, but if they give you a date as opposed to a delay, the problem is so what Sony does, they show you all these games and everyone got all hyped up, and you know the hype train is real. And as much as people want to knock Nintendo fans for getting on the hype train when something's rumored or announced, Sony just keeps letting us down. Whereas Nintendo is just kind of either like, we never said we were doing that in the first place, or
they go silent.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Sony's getting us all excited and then letting us down over and over and over again. And if you have something else to keep you busy in the meantime, that's okay. But like you stated yourself, Donnie, is there wasn't a whole lot of content, or Kyle said it too, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff, but this year so far has been good. So if they have a strong first half, and then we look at Q3 and Q4, and there's nothing on the table, that's the prime selling season. What are you selling people then? Like, new PlayStation owners, sure, they can get, you know, the classics, Infamous and Uncharted and The Last of Us, and they can start building that stuff. But for those of us who've had it, unless you're on the VR bandwagon, you got nothing if everything gets pushed back that we've been talking about.
So I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm going to wait for it to come up because I think they can replace it. However, I mean, they're not. If this game is delayed, you'll know it by in two ways. One, they'll go on stage and they'll say 2017, which I don't think they'll do, because then the story becomes Horizon delayed till 2017. What I think they'll do is if it's not going to hit this fall, they're just going to come up and show it, and they're not going to give you a date. They're just going to say, coming to PlayStation 4. And that's when you're going to know they don't know if it's going to hit the date or not and expect a delay. But I don't think there's any way at all. I mean, this is their show. This is their showcase. This is why we get excited about E3. This is everybody's reason to come compete and give us a reason to be excited, and I do not think it would make no marketing sense at all for them to go up there and be like, see this awesome game? 2017 after we told you 2016, because then it's a bad story, and that's just bad spin.
Yeah, I think even if they don't show a date, though, that's what's going to happen to it. Speaking of games possibly getting delayed, No Man's Sky. So this is supposed to be out just a couple weeks after E3. Rumors abound now that the game has been delayed. Some rumors are saying that it's possibly pushed to only July or August. Others are saying it's more significant than that. I'll be honest, I really was on the No Man's Sky hype train. I'm kind of just done with this game. I don't want to see anything about this game at all until like 2 weeks before it's released. Tell me 2 weeks before, hey, this game's coming out, and I'll be like, great, I'll get it. But this is the sad case of Sony, like we were just talking about a little bit ago, really getting behind one game and pushing one game and making everyone, or trying to make everyone get on board with this one game, and then giving us release windows and release days, and now it's maybe going to be delayed. I think Sean Murray from Hello Games is like one of the coolest people I've ever seen give an interview. I think the game looks pretty cool. I just don't really want to talk about it anymore until it comes out. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Let's see, No Man's Sky. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. No, I mean, it was a very ambitious project. I think it was a cool concept, not my bag, so I'm not really that interested. But, obviously it's our job to talk about these things. Personally, I think it will be delayed, and it will be 100% delayed because of VR support. When they first showed it, I immediately thought, like, wow, that'd make a pretty cool 3DS game. Like, it just had that look and feel very much like an old school Star Fox, that it would look very cool in virtual reality. So I also don't think that because of the graphic style they chose, it would be really that difficult for them to make it VR compatible. I think it lends itself very well to that feel. So I think for people, if you're getting a PlayStation VR, then this game is a must buy and you must play it on VR. I think that's the way to play it. If you're not aboard the VR hype train, I'm not sure how fun this game is going to be long term. Give it a couple hours, sure, but after a week or two, really, how much more can you play it? But that's just me.
Donnie?
I think the game's getting delayed because of VR support, and I think that'll be the announcement. And I mean, unlike Star Fox, the game doesn't have any action. I mean, there's very little action that I've seen out of that game. I mean, I've seen that you can shoot things, and there's sentinels, and I've paid attention to the game, and the game's really pretty. To me, this game reminds me of Fez. It looks awesome, it's pretty, and it shows you like, oh, there's all this stuff you can do, and there's so much content here, and everybody gets excited. And then the way that I'm thinking is, I'm going to get that game, I'm going to download it, I'm going to play it, I'm going to play it for about an hour, I'm going to see everything and do it, and I'm going to put it down, I'm probably never going to come back to it. That game is just too deep for me. And it doesn't seem like there's enough meat on that bone to keep me coming to it. That said, I haven't put my hands on it. I also don't think it's justified its full retail purchase price to me yet. I was really into that game when I thought it was an indie title and it was a budget game, but now I believe it's $40? 60, so they're going full retail with it now. Yep, I feel like I could place my $60 bet on something more of a sure thing than that game.
Well, you could, again, that's why you don't pre-order, because you can wait for reviews to see what happens. And I did get 100% of the trophies in Fez, so I think that probably says something about me.
Yeah, I did not. That game was way too deep for me. I was like, nope, thinking too hard, moving on.
So if they coincide it with VR and they say it's coming out they give a release date for PSVR and they say, and it comes with No Man's Sky, that'd be pretty sweet. Outside of that, I don't know how much more juice they can squeeze out of that orange right now. I think they got to let that dog lie for a while. I think if it is delayed, I just hope I don't see it on the stage unless it's related to VR, and they say that delay is because of VR. Because I think just like we had talked about for Horizon, like if they come out and they're like, hey, look at this game. Oh yeah, by the way, it comes out in 2 weeks. Not anymore. It comes out in 2 months. Like, I don't think that's going to be helpful for them at all. So, as is often part of Sony's press conferences, they usually have some coverage of indie games. How much time do we think indie games are going to get? Are there any indie games you guys are looking forward to? What do we think indie games still have a place on the main stage? The first year of the PS4, the first E3 that PS4 was out, indie games had a huge place on that main stage. This last year it was definitely a little bit less. What do we think about indie games this year at E3, Donnie?
I really hope that they do dedicate some space to it, a lot more than they did at the PlayStation experience, where they just had like 15 people in little corners around the room all like holding a controller, and then they all left together. I really like it when they dive in and showcase it. I think the indie space is very important. It is that budget title, you know, those old games they're in between. I really hope that we get some more Firewatch, Gone Home type stuff. I like those experiences. I want to see more in that horror space, that Friday the 13th game. I'm really excited about that game, if I can't keep bringing it up enough. I'd like to see something like that demoed, more of that. Was it Outlast? Outlast
Yep.
2? That type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm all about that stuff. So the more the merrier for me, because normally when those games are shown, they usually come with dates and even prices. Like these folks usually don't come out of the woodwork until they're ready. So I think sprinkling some of that in PlayStation will definitely lessen the criticism on their part.
Kevin, your thoughts?
Now, while I'm not a big quote-unquote indie gamer, I am a fan of the weird and unusual experiences, which most of the time the indie games end up being. So, personally, I think, these, like you mentioned, 2 years ago, they spent a lot of time on it, and I think that was a bit too much. I think last year, when they showed kind of like a sizzle reel, and I don't know, it was maybe like 5 to 10 minutes they talked about it, I think that was perfect. I like seeing the videos where they just kind of go through and, like, as they're showing them, like, oh, that one looks kind of cool. Oh, hey, that one looks kind of cool. And I remember the names. So you have, like your Firewatch and stuff like that. That kind of stand out and are good experiences to play. They're easily digestible. They don't necessarily take up a ton of your time or a ton of your wallet. But I think it's very important that they still showcase them and still continue to do that. And on my radar, most of the time I don't know any of these titles prior to them showing them at E3. So I don't normally follow any ahead of time to say, oh, it's cool. It's just kind of when I see that, I kind of write down the name like, oh, I need to look more into this game. But Outlast 2 is definitely on my list, and I'm hoping they'll show some. Well, it's supposedly coming out this year, another one. So I think they kind of have to show some there, but I'm excited to see what they do with it. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a solid 5 to 8 quote-unquote, smaller indie titles that they cover. I think I would really like to see Pyre from Supergiant. I think that there's been in the last 2 months or so, there's been a lot of indie games dumped on the PlayStation blog. Pyre was one of them. I worry that means any of the games that we're seeing on the blog now we're not going to see on the main stage because there's some games that I think are really cool that have been talked about. But I would love to see Pyre. I would love to see Hob, which was talked about at PSX. That game I thought looked awesome. I think the Tomorrow Children needs a release date, and I could see that being on there with a release date. And I think What Remains of Edith Finch also probably might get a release date. So I
thought that game was already out.
Not What Remains of Edith Finch isn't, no. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that we have some games that I think definitely need releases or are very, very close to releases. And again, like you said, Kevin, I think there's definitely going to be some indie games that I have never heard of or have never seen that will be announced, and I'll be like, that thing looks really cool. So I'm excited for that. So about a year ago, well, not quite a year ago, a few months ago, really, Sony picked up this guy named Kojima and said, hey, I have a studio. And he said, well, I'm going to do my own studio, but I'll do a game with you. And they said, okay, that sounds good. Enough. Is Kojima going to be there? Is he going to talk about anything? I think he'll be there, but I don't think he's going to talk about anything. Kevin?
I think we'll definitely see him. Probably not a lot of content coming out from him, but I think he might give us a little more insight to what he's been working on. Maybe some sketches and stuff like that. Kind of similar to what they did with Shenmue 3 last year, where they're kind of like, hey, here's our idea, but, obviously it's a long way away, but I think Sony would be very smart to bring him out for a couple reasons. Obviously, he, since being free, has kind of been a little bit of a recluse. And prior to that, I mean, he was really kind of controlled and, forced not to go out and celebrate his victory with, Metal Gear Solid and his achievements and what he's done. So I think he's due the stage time, and I think it'd be really good PR if Sony were the ones to kind of bring them out and say, hey, here's our buddy Kojima, what are you working on, bud? And kind of giving him some stage time to present things on his own. And I think that would be a huge story, and that would steal a lot of headlines away with whatever he's doing. So even if he just shows early stuff, I mean, look at how much media coverage his logo got when they showed the full body of the logo. It's more than just a head. I saw, 15 to 20 different websites have articles on it, and that was basically a no news type of story. If he were to show a little bit of what he's working on, or even just discuss what he's working on, I think that'd be much bigger. So I think he'll definitely be there. Sony would be really stupid not to have him there.
Donnie, what say you, sir?
God, I hope not. I mean, this is, and it's nothing against, Mr. Kojima. I want his game to be amazing. I want it to be amazing, but this is what they do. And this is what they've done. This is what I haven't liked. I don't want to see another game that's 3 or 4 years away. I don't want to see another game that's going to go into the, the depths of the world and we wait and wait and wait and wait. I don't want to. So if his game is that far out, which it has to be, I don't want to see it. I don't even want to see him. If he wants to be sitting, or if he wants to introduce the indie folks or something like that, that'd be great. Use him as a cameo. Everybody loves him. I get that. Good press. I don't want to see his logo again, and I don't want to hear him talk about, my game's an action game. Of course it's an action game. You make Metal Gear Solid. It'd be really dumb if your game wasn't an action game. So, for me, I don't want to see him on stage talking about the game that will come on the PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation 4.5 or the PlayStation 8.0. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, with the world tour he's been on and visiting all the different studios, I don't know how he could have been working on anything. But who knows?
Yeah.
So the last general topic, last but not least, there's this little company called Naughty Dog. They just released a pretty great game. Naughty Dog has had a tendency to have their next game announced rather quickly after the release of one of their games. So, do you think we will see a Last of Us 2 or the next Naughty Dog game at this E3? Donnie?
Oh, that makes me sound like a hypocrite.
They got you.
That's maybe why I went back to you.
Yeah, you're right. And the reason I would say it's different is because they have a history of it. I wouldn't want to see just the Last of Us 2 logo. That would seem dumb to me because it seems pretty obvious. I think last generation we had 3 Uncharted's and 1 Last of Us, and I hope this generation we have 1 Uncharted and 3 Last of Us. However, if they come back and they say, we've been pre-pro Last of Us 2, and we're going to finish the story of Ellie and Joel. If they confirm that those characters are there, man, I would be excited for that announcement. And I know it's probably 2 or 3 years away. The other difference between Naughty Dog and I just want to say everyone else, look at the amount of games that they've given us in 8 years. These folks aren't going to take 4 or 5 years to get this game to us. This isn't a Metal Gear situation. This isn't a Final Fantasy X situation. We just got Uncharted 4 after they did The Last of Us, Uncharted 3, and Uncharted 2. I mean, these people, they're really good at getting work out. I think a 2.5 to 3 year cycle, and if they've already pre-pro on Last of Us, I think they have because Uncharted 4 got delayed. I can't imagine that delay. They had the entire staff dedicated to it. My understanding, Kyle, correct me wrong, my understanding is that they use their team to work on their parts, and as those parts are finished, they peel them off to the next project. So I would have to say that whatever it is next, and you got to think it's The Last of Us based on its success, whatever's next, they've been working on it, somewhat for a period of time, at least 6 months. So I actually wouldn't be against that, and I think that could be that definitely could be Sony's big trounce. I think that could be the end of a show announcement that they walk off with, and that's the boom, drop mic, Ellie and Joel are coming back.
Kevin, thoughts?
Donnie stole my line. I was literally going to say they're going to show some sort of cinematic trailer at the very, very end of the presentation. Mic drop Sony. I think we'll be looking at a release date end of 2017, I'm going to say. I'm going to say they've been working on this a little bit longer. Like you said, Naughty Dog does peel off people as their portions are done. And I think with the success of the last couple of games, they've even grown a bit too. So they might even started a smaller second team to start the ball rolling. But you got to remember, too, so like in between Last of Us and Uncharted 4, they also remastered Last of Us again, too. So they're able to produce, a little more content now than they used to in the first days of, Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 3. Were obviously a longer period of time. So I think we'll see something. I think they kind of have to. That would be the big end of the show reveal. I mean, there's a small chance they'll show something new as opposed to Last of Us 2, but I think if they really want to make everybody happy, that's what they want to see is Last of Us 2 and not just a logo.
That'd be leaving money on the table.
Exactly.
So Neil and Bruce said that because Naughty Dog had pretty much split into two separate teams, but they had said that they brought everyone together to crunch and push out Uncharted 4. But then with how long that took, I really started to wonder, did they really bring everyone over to do this? Like, did this really what happened? And again, not that I think that they're lying or being dishonest. Maybe they pulled a few people, but I feel like they probably have been working on, whether it be The Last of Us 2, some people are hoping for a new Jak and Daxter, whatever it is that they've been working on. I feel like they probably are maybe further along than we expect them, but this would be about, just over a month after Uncharted 4 came out. This might be a little too quick this time to announce their next game. I think they've had like 3-month breaks before, which is still really fast. I would be surprised if we get a Naughty Dog announcement. I wouldn't be sad about it, but I would definitely be surprised if it's something other than, information on Uncharted 4 DLC. Like that I could definitely see being like, hey, here's what maybe our, single player DLC is going to be about. But even with that, they said they hadn't even thought about that yet when the game shipped, so that probably could still be a year away. But yeah, I think it'd be fun. I think people would love it. I think this might be a little too quick for that. So those were the main topics that we wanted to cover. So now is the time to kind of wrap things up, talk about things that maybe we're looking for that we didn't talk about as a big group. My list is huge, so I'm not going to start with it because I want to cross some things off if you guys cover them. But Kevin, do you have any other thoughts, other things you're hoping to see, games you're looking forward to, or things you want to see Sony do at their press conference?
There's not a whole lot on my list. I like to be surprised, and I tried not to think too much about it, and that's kind of why our main topics were the gimmies and the stuff we knew from last year. But two things I would like to see, and I've said this before, I'd love to see some Kingdom Hearts 3 action. I don't expect it, but they did show a little bit last year, so maybe they'll show some more. Who knows? And then lastly is I want to see something along the Infamous lines, maybe another sequel or just something else that Insomniac Games is working on to supplement Sony's lineup that's coming down the pike. So maybe they've been working on something in secret too that'll be announced for late this year or early next year as well. So that's it for me.
Donnie.
The one thing that I want to see is something new. I want to see something brand new that we don't know about that's exciting that comes out this year. That's the one thing I want to see. There was a lot of rumors that we're getting a new God of War game and that it's tied into the Neo and it's going to look amazing and be visually breathtaking, that it might take place as the holiday pillar game pushing Horizon into the spring. I hope that's not the case, but it could be. I like God of War, so I'm not going to say that as a bad thing. I thought the God of War games were fun. They're just a beat-em-up brawler. It's supposed to be, we did a podcast about it, it's like Nordic or something like that, so a different story, different setting. I think that'd be great. The one and only game that I want to see, and I want to see it, I want to know what it has, I want to know when it's coming, is Hot Shots Golf. That's the only game that I'll be tuning into the entire show to see them show me Hot Shots Golf and let me know that it's coming in July or August. I really hope it's coming sooner than next year. I'm not a big fan of its social element. It's very social. I'm also not a big fan of you can create your own avatar, and I'm totally for creating my own avatar. I just hope that that's not the only character I can play as. I like playing as other characters as well. But if they show me a great golf game with a lot of courses and a lot of things to do, I'm totally in day one. That's the game I want to see. So Hot Shots, where they showed it, they didn't show it at last year's E3, but they did show it last year during E3, and then they showed it at the PlayStation Experience. It's been worked on for at least 2 years. It should be ready to go, and that's my expectation, is that we're going to get Hot Shots Golf this year.
So, Donnie, is it safe to say if they do not show Hot Shots Golf, you will say that...
I'm going to be
Would you say that it was a bad press conference? The press conference was just bad no matter what else happens.
I mean, I can't say that, but I'm going to be definitely pissed off. I mean, if they come out and show me Ellie, I mean, I'm going to be right there. I mean, I'm going to be excited. Even if the game's 3 years away, I'm going to be excited. I want to see Ellie again. But Hot Shots is the game that I want. I want more games like that. If that makes any sense. You know, like we had The Order, and it's this very cinematic shooter. And we have Horizon, it's this very cinematic, you know, open world action adventure game. Like Uncharted, I'm starting to feel inundated. And I want a Little Big Planet kart racer. And I want a Hot Shots golf game. And I want more arcadey games. And, man, I love Hot Shots golf. It's like the best game on the market. I'd say Mario Golf, but Mario Golf hasn't hit console since GameCube. No, it's not true. They had a Wii game, didn't they?
I have no idea.
I don't think so. I think it was GameCube.
No, they didn't. Yeah, you're right. Because I don't think they did. No, you're right. Hot Shots Golf it is legit. But I am worried that they're messing with the formula too much. I like the fishing, the skydiving, and driving a golf cart, but I swear to God, if that game I turn it on and I see 400 people driving like a bat out of hell across the golf course while I'm trying to play, I'm going to be furious. And, if that's the case, I might be like, sell my PlayStation furious. Like, seriously, I'm going to be really mad. I better be able to turn that crap off because I just want to play my golf game.
Man, so. PlayStation Island's going to get smaller and smaller. All right, so I have a rather lengthy list. I will try to keep it piffy, so if you guys want to take a 5-minute nap, I don't blame you. But, being the PlayStation guys, so I think we might see something from Dreams, and I think we might get a release date. Dreams is actually the game that I thought maybe they'd come out and be like, hey, it's available today digitally, and you could, because I think this is a game that marketing is going to be impossible for. I think it's trying to market Dreams is like trying to market PSVR. I think the only other option might be that Dreams is going to also be a PSVR launch title. So I think one of those two things is going to happen. They're going to talk about it, and it's going to either be a VR thing or it's going to be like, hey, get it now. Persona 5, I think, is going to get a release date. I think they're going to show something.
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll give us a U.S. release date, and I'm thinking it might be the same as the Japanese release date. I think that's one of the reasons the game is taking so long, is that they're going through and doing all their localization right now. So I feel like the game's probably mostly done. They're just doing localization. So I think it might be a September 15th release date everywhere, which would be pretty cool, especially with Final Fantasy 15 coming out, just a couple weeks later. I think either Dead Don't Ride, which is supposedly Ben's new game, or the next God of War game is going to be the end of the show. I think they are going to say, oh, one last thing, lights will go down. They'll play the trailer for one of those two games, or maybe they'll show both of them at some point, but one of the two of them will end the show, and it'll have a Fall 16 release date, and that will be the other pillar they're looking for with Gran Turismo Sport, which had its own little thing a few days ago. I think we'll see some Gran Turismo Sport at the show, but I think that will be mostly in relation to VR for Gran Turismo. I'm not a huge racing fan, but Gran Turismo sells like hotcakes for Sony. It's their best-selling first-party franchise, so I think that we might not see a ton of it at the show, but I think it is a bigger pillar this fall than most of us give it credit for. So I think either Dead Don't Ride or God of War will be their other big fall game, and one of them will end their show. A couple things that these might not be good E3 things based off the type of show that E3 is, but I hope we see some sort of revamp of PS Plus to include, movies, PS2 classics, something like that. I think PS Plus is getting kind of stale. Even if they were releasing straight-up AAA games all the time, I think things are getting a little old. I think our libraries are getting far bigger than we can reasonably play anymore, so I wouldn't mind some change-ups to what they're doing with PS Plus, and I would love for them to add an option to subscribe to PS Now and PS Plus together for one affordable price.
Yep. I was going to say maybe even give you PS Now games as a part of your PS Plus
exactly.
for the month.
Yep, I think something like that would be an excellent thing. Again, I'm not sure if that's an E3 announcement. That might not be the right kind of show, but I would love to see something like that. I think also if they could do something with trophies so that if you get a platinum, you get something, like a wallpaper or an avatar. I think that'd be pretty sweet. I think obviously that's more pressure on developers to make all of those things, and I don't think you should get like credit or a coupon in the store because, that's just trophies are cool, but the system is pretty bad, so that's just abuse is just going to be blatant if they did that. But I think getting something cool to say like, hey, you get this awesome wallpaper, or like an in-game weapon that's balanced or something like that might be cool. So I hope that they come out with some announcements for that. Obviously, a lot of people want PSN name changes. I don't care because I like my name, but some people were irresponsible when they were 12. So I think that might happen, even though this might not, again, be the right type of show for that. because I think people will really care about it and it'll become a bigger deal than it really is. I think the game Wild might see the light again. This is the new Michel Ancel game, the guy who created Rayman.
Oh,
this was announced.
I remember that's like the Far Cry
Kinda,
game,
yeah.
right?
It was announced back at Gamescom 2014, and I think it's only ever been shown, I think, maybe at like PSX one other time. So I could see them showing something. Sometimes they'd really try to keep most of those games like that. Detroit's Become Human. Like, I could see those maybe they wait for fall to show either at Paris Games Week or Gamescom, but that and Detroit I could see potentially being at this show. But again, those are both European developers, so they tend to like to save those for their European shows. So maybe we see them, maybe we won't, but I think that'd be interesting. I think Hellblade is going to be there, and I think it's going to get a release date or a release window. This is the game from the folks over at Ninja Theory. This has been in development for quite a while. They quote-unquote reset development on it in 2015 because they wanted to go back and fix some things. But it's still slated for a 2016 release. It might get pushed to 2017, but I could either see a trailer with a firm 26 date or a trailer with telling us that it's actually been pushed to 2017. They have some really cool developer blogs and vlogs about this game, like on YouTube and stuff. So if you're interested in it, check it out. The game looks pretty sweet, but I could see them potentially covering that. Hot Shots Golf, I think, would be great. I'm a huge fan, just like Donnie is. I hope we get to see that soon. Gran Turismo Sport, I talked about briefly. I think we'll see some of that with VR. Gravity Rush 2, I would like to see Gravity Rush 2. It might not have enough traction here in order to get an E3 press conference, but definitely it's a Tokyo Game Show game. But I would love to see that. I really enjoyed the first Gravity Rush on Vita. I haven't played the remaster yet on PS4, but I plan to. So hopefully we'll be able to see some Gravity Rush 2. I think that it'd be really awesome if Sony came out and announced that they had acquired a new studio. I hope that's either Housemarque or Quantic Dream. Speaking of Housemarque, I hope we see Matterfall. Housemarque just released Alienation not too long ago, but Matterfall's been in development for quite a while, so I would really, really love to see what exactly that game's going to be, and is this them ramping up into doing bigger, more robust games than they've done in the past. I really like the other stuff they do, and I don't think they definitely...
I like their little games. They're like my favorite developer outside Naughty Dog. I like their little games.
I agree, and I love their little games too. So I was going to say, if it's not bigger, I'm totally okay with that because I love the things they do. I just feel like they might be at that point where they're maybe yearning for something a little bit bigger, and if that's fine. If they want to, great. If they want to keep doing what they do and keep doing the twin stick stuff, which is mostly what they do, I'm totally fine with that.
I mean, their game looked awesome.
Yeah, it looks super sweet. I hope they talk about Vita more than in passing. I know the Vita is basically on its way out. Hey, they actually on the PlayStation blog today just announced a Vita game that's coming out in October. So clearly it's going to be around for at least a little bit longer. So maybe they'll talk about it. If Gio Corsi's there, I'm sure he'll get on stage and mention Vita once or twice. So I'm hoping that happens.
I don't think they've mentioned one game.
I think they will mention some games are coming to PS4 and Vita, but I don't know that they'll mention any Vita exclusives. So I'm almost done, I promise. Nier Automata, I hope that we get some more information about that, or Nier Automata, actually, now that I think about it. It's being developed by Platinum. I really love Platinum sometimes, but man, sometimes Platinum's games just really disappoint me. I have a lot of high hopes for this game. It's still supposedly a 2016 release, which, if we think about all the games that we just talked that are about 2016 releases, if they all come out this year, it would be ridiculous. So clearly that's probably not going to happen. But I would love to see a little bit more about that game. Nice action game that looks really promising. I think we're going to get one unexpected first-party announcement, whether that be Sucker Punch coming out and talking potentially about the rumored Spider-Man game. Maybe it is Naughty Dog that comes out and talks about another game that they've been working on. But I think we are going to get one first-party game that we did.
Wouldn't that be God of War?
Well, but I think people are kind of expecting either God of War or Ben to be there. Like, I think this is going to be a game that we have no idea what it is. Something that is purely like Ben's game and Sony Santa Monica's game. They're not confirmed at this point, but I think most people are pretty confident what they are. I think what Naughty Dog's doing and what Sucker Punch is doing, especially those two, like nobody has any clue. So I could see one of the two of them coming out potentially with something. And then I think there's also going to be one second or third-party exclusive PS4 game announced. A lot of people have been saying that they think this might be the new Resident Evil game. I am leaning away from that.
Not exclusive.
I think that
it might be.
You think so?
Hey, Xbox got Tomb Raider.
Yeah, but
oh man,
and that's where it all.
All right, I mean, I'll let you have it.
That's where it came from. So
I think, though, that like Resident Evil, though, is Capcom, whereas Tomb Raider is Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics.
Yeah.
So I think since Street Fighter V went to PS4, I would expect Resident Evil not necessarily to be exclusive, but to show up at Xbox's press conference.
Now that I could see. Now, I could see him, on stage, but I don't. Yeah, the Resident Evil franchise, the next iteration in a game that has always been multi-platform, going exclusive.
It
hasn't always
been multi-platform.
Yeah, I mean, it started on PlayStation.
The first 4 were only on Sony.
So,
yeah, the original Resident Evil.
No, the GameCube had
that
them.
was way later, Donnie.
Resident Evil 4 came to.
Yeah, that
everything.
was the first one, but that wasn't the fourth game. That wasn't the fourth Resident Evil.
Okay. So I get the Resident Evil 1. I mean, that was like when it was a 2-horse race and it was disc versus cartridge. I mean, Resident Evil 2 did come to N64.
Way later, though.
I get
way later.
I get what you're saying, but I mean, even now, I mean, I think you're talking about a history that's long forgotten. I mean, I'm thinking recent history. That would shock the hell out of me. I would sit there, my jaw would drop. I'd be, oh my god.
Yeah, I think that Capcom wants to try to, play nice with everyone. So I could see them, like I said, being at Xbox's press conference. Not that it'll be an exclusive, but I could see them being like, hey, it's going to have this first or whatever that they typically do at these things now. So I think there will be a third party. I hope, and I know everyone says Rockstar doesn't do anything at E3. Supposedly Rockstar still owns Sony and exclusive. Agent was supposed to be in development for PS3. That we haven't heard from that game in forever. So, we didn't hear about Neo forever, and that game came back. Last Guardian came back. Is it the year that maybe Agent makes a return this year? I think that'd be pretty cool to see. Again, I know, quote-unquote, Rockstar doesn't do E3, but I think it'd be pretty cool if they came out, or some other third party came out with an exclusive that is going to be on PS4, and hopefully soon. I mean, I know Rockstar, with their last financial, said they'll have no game prior to April of 2017, but I could do a summer 2017 release. That'd be cool. So that's my list. It's long. Sorry. That's everything I have to say about the E3 press conference for Sony.
I did want to follow up. I think they'll start the show with God of War. I think you'll get this great, amazing cinematic and how beautiful it is, and they'll come out and they'll talk about the engine and how awesome and big it is, and then they'll go right into the hardware, the Neo announcement, and then they'll build from there with all the games. The one thing that until you said PS name change, it never really came to me. Man, I really hope they do some UI updates.
Yeah.
And I know that E3 isn't but they can take 5 minutes and have Shuhei come out there and go, you know what, you're doing name changes, we're bringing folders, you're going to be able to delete this stuff. I mean, come on. The Wii U's got folders. For all the hate, the Wii U's got folders. So, I would really like that. That'd be great. That'd be really good news for me. I like that stuff.
Alrighty then. Well, Kyle, excellent job facilitating our Sony at E3 conversation this past week. We appreciate it. And now it's time to move on to a few pieces of some news.
This week in Play Some Video Game News.
Sony announced today that it has sold more than 40 million PlayStation 4 units as of May 22nd, continuing to make it the fastest-selling console in the company's history. Also reported there, they are anticipating, as we mentioned during the discussion before, they're anticipating another 20 million units will be sold worldwide by March 31st, 2017, which is the end of their fiscal year. So hopefully they have some of those games we talked about releasing this year in order to push more consoles, or how big of a chunk are they anticipating of people upgrading their hardware with the announcement of the Neo or whatever they're going to end up the final name of it going to be. So that might have something to do with there. Also in that same news piece, they did announce that Uncharted 4 has sold more than 2.7 million copies in its first week, which is insane for an exclusive, console exclusive game to sell that much that quick. Oh yeah,
worth it.
Absolutely. All the reviews say so. And the last piece of news with the numbers is PS4 software sales. More than 270.9 million copies of software sold through retail stores and the PlayStation Network. So they're just kind of throwing numbers out ahead of time before E3 to kind of just reaffirm their market domination right now. Another piece of news that was announced is, it wasn't really announced, but Mighty Number 9, if you guys remember that game, new trailer came out. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I saw all the Twitter buzz, but I didn't watch it.
You kind of got to watch it because watching it gives it the justice that everyone's kind of talking about. It looks like a bad early 90s video game ad.
I gave up on that game, and I would sadly say that because I think it's still coming to Wii U, and I was like, nope, this game is going to be bad.
It's going to be on like everything, but the commercial is really bad. The voiceover work is terrible. They're kind of like, it's freaking awesome, dude. Like, it's kind of how the voiceover is. It's absolutely horrible. And the bigger surprise was that it doesn't even look as good now. It looks like the graphics were downscaled, which is very odd to see that come through. So if you haven't seen it already, go check out the trailer. It's worth a laugh. But I think you're right, Donnie. I think a lot of people now are kind of forgetting about it. It just doesn't really do well. The trailer just kind of shows, hey, you got these 3 kind of moves your character can do. And it's freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. Like they say it like 3 times or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. But I think with how much Kickstarter money they made, they'd be able to invest it a little bit better.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but because I actually stopped listening to the trailer because I got annoyed with the voiceover. But is it true that the voiceover guy says something like, make him cry like an anime fan on prom night or something like that?
Yep.
Like,
oh,
I mean,
no.
I'm just like, you know,
I'm
so glad I didn't back that game. I almost backed it because I was like, hey, it's going to come to Vita. This is going to be great. And I'm so glad I didn't because, man, just the disaster that game seems to have been is just disappointing. And, man, that trailer, the gameplay just did not look good.
No, it really didn't.
Oh. I think it's funny. I think the people on Vita Island and the Nintendo Double Wide share a kindred spirit.
I think that is true.
Yeah.
I do think that's true.
Yeah. And then the last piece of news is Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens announced their season pass with DLC. Couple things of note. There's going to be a Pose Quest survival level pack, a First Order Siege level pack, Escape from the Star Killer base level pack, which to me, some of that stuff I would have expected to be in the initial game, so I'm not sure what Lego's trying to do here. So that's a little weird. And then there's a bunch of character packs they'll be putting in there. Jedi character pack with some of the old and kind of vaguely referenced Star Wars Jedis that you don't see much in the movies, but they're in the extended universe. Prequel trilogy pack, Freemaker Adventures pack, Star Wars Rebels character pack, and Clone Wars Rebel pack. So they're using kind of all their different franchises and pumping them in there. So overall, it's a lot of content. But to me, some of the DLC packs, the actual levels, seem like they should have been in there kind of in the first place. So it's a little bit weird, but the hype is still there for that game. I'm interested to see what's going on. I'm a big fan of the Lego games overall, but I generally wait till much later on to pick them up.
I do have something to tack on to that news story. I did read a story that came out when that announcement was made with the DLC that the DLC was not confirmed for Wii U.
Yeah, I was actually getting to that point. Yeah, it was not mentioned.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They mentioned for PlayStation 4, Xbox, Wii U was not on the list, so I would not anticipate that stuff being available on there. Yeah, they said, due to the Wii U's limited user base, it's likely the reason for this. So I guess they're kind of like, well, we made the game, why, port the rest of the stuff to it? So it's a little disappointing, but it's surprising to an extent, but then kind of not, because we all know that the Wii U, as much as they want to say the NX isn't replacing it, but hey, there's no new games coming out for the Wii U once we get past Zelda, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, but I wanted to buy that game on Wii U because my kids want to play on Wii U, and it's sad that I may miss out on. So I hope I kind of hope the DLC isn't, I don't want to say not good, but I want to say I hope it's not.
Yeah,
essential.
It seems like the characters are probably the coolest part, the level packs. I mean, the level packs might end up being good, but in my mind, I don't understand how they don't make it in the game. Anyway, Pose Escape and the attack on Maz's fortress, that's the second one. Like, that's all stuff that should be in there. Like, what are the levels then if you don't have those major points in the movie? True. So I'm a little nervous on this. So I did play a little bit of Lego Marvel Avengers, which I guess was the last one before this one they did. And it was okay, but, I mean, there were some issues. There were some weird lags on my PS4, of all things, and some, buttons that didn't seem to work the way they were intended. So I don't know, the Lego might be losing it a little bit here and kind of just using their name as a cash grab right now. Hey, it happens. But that's all we got for the news this week. So
Can I ask a really quick question?
Absolutely.
So, and I promise this is going to sound like me trying to be like an arrogant PlayStation fan, and it genuinely isn't. but is it true that, and because I feel like I read this, that Uncharted's week 1 numbers are more than Halo 5 has sold since release?
To date, yeah, I heard that. Yeah, they sold more week 1 than Halo to date.
I believe that I just closed the story, so I don't have it. But I believe that they're saying it's the fastest selling first party title, period. Like amongst anything right now. That's how well that game is selling. So.
And for me, like, I'm happy that Uncharted's doing well. That's just so disappointing to me because, like, I owned a 360. The number of hours I dumped into, like, Halo 3, like, that just makes me so sad because I really enjoyed those games, and man, that's a bummer.
I love a good fanboy, so I don't think you should feel upset. I don't think it's that far of a stretch, considering that Uncharted 4 literally has, obviously it's got a huge base that's pulling from. It's got, twice the numbers that Halo's got to run with. That aside, Uncharted really has no competitor. There's no other Uncharted. I mean, people can say
that's
Tomb
the
Raider,
closest thing, but it's still not.
Yeah, that's the closest thing, but I wouldn't call it a competitor. And on PlayStation, it isn't. Right? So, like, it has no competition. There's nothing like it. So, whereas Halo came out where Titanfall hit, people have Destiny, which is a lot of the Halo base already. Obviously, Call of Duty Battlefront. I mean, Halo's a shooter that came out on the console that is loaded with shooters. Whereas Uncharted hit a console in the middle of spring where nothing major has come outside of Ratchet & Clank the platformer, and it's the big AAA game that everybody's been waiting for, riding that wave. So to me, I took that news, I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you. Halo is supposed to be a tentpole, and I think it is, as a, just as a being. But I can't say that I was surprised.
Right. I mean, look at it this way. Like you mentioned, it sold half the amount of consoles, so that right in itself, cripples it a little bit. But then think about it. So Sony announces 40 million PlayStation 4 sold, and 2.7 million copies. So I mean, that's a very small percentage of the actual install base right now. And yes, it's very early; it's only 2 weeks in. But so as impressive as it is, when you think about the scope of how many consoles are out there in the wild, it's not. To that extent. But the other thing for me, and, bear with me because I've only played a few of the Halo games. I haven't played them all. But my friends have, and they kind of all said that the story has really let them down since, I think, like Halo 3. So, whereas you have something that's story-driven, that everybody can appreciate a great story in a game, Halo kind of got away from that, and it was focused more on multiplayer, where it kind of, in my mind, as much as people wanted that story to come back and to expand on it, it became more like a Call of Duty where, yeah, it has a story mode, cool, I might play through it, but I'm there for the multiplayer. And I think that might have a lot to do with it as well.
Plus, it also had the Halo Master Chief Collection, which I think a lot of Halo fans would rather play that online.
For them to release those two, quote-unquote, so close, that seemed weird to me, too, because you're isolating the market where it's like, okay, I can get one game, or I could get, there was like 4 or 5 games in the Master Chief Collection, so it's kind of,
with all the maps and everything for the same price.
So it was a weird move on their part, but
since we're talking numbers and boring everybody with the counting, I'll insert my fanboy comment. How impressive is that Mario Kart 8 sold 7.5 million units on Wii U base.
Wow.
That's more than half of the people that own a Wii U.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's like 75% of their entire base. That's like a higher attach rate than Wii Sports, and Wii Sports came with the damn console.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Damn. The one thing to say, I mean, those Wii U console people, they buy games. So
especially the first party stuff. I mean,
absolutely.
That's really the big draw right now. It's kind of all they have. I mean, nobody does it better than them, and I still think even though they're few and far between, if you look at first party releases and only first party, I think Nintendo does it best.
Yeah, this gen?
Yeah, they really do. But all right, so I think that wraps it up for this week, everybody. So, as always, we want to remind you to hit up the website at playsomevideogames.com. We had mentioned during the last podcast we've added a live chat in preparation for E3. So come and chat with us. You can register. You can do it anonymous as a guest, but feel free to chat along with us as we get closer to E3 and leave your comments there. Kyle's been hitting up a lot of activity on the forum, so jump in the conversation there if you haven't already. You can find us on Twitter at _PSVG. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/playsomevideogames. And I think that's everything. Am I missing anything, guys?
I posted a video on the website today from Zachary Antel over at Vimeo called Player 2, and it's a tribute to always playing with a sibling or a cousin or whoever your Player 2 is, and I loved it. It's 3.5 minutes. Go check it out. Give the guy clicks. He gets clicks, not us, for that video. It's embedded, so go give the guy some clicks and watch the video.
All right. So I think that covers everything. So thank you, gentlemen. And as always, we want to thank you guys, the fans. We do it for you. So remember, boys and girls, never stop gaming.
Thank you for listening to Play Some Video Games, the official podcast.
Who's eating snacks?
No, it's me ripping notes. I've been lobbing like all of my notes for our show since the beginning in this little notebook, and I just realized that I've got like 30 pages of PSVG podcast scribble.
Nothing wrong with that. You should
So,
save it because someday it'll go in a museum after we're all famous.
Absolutely.